Hi, this is Steph, and you're listening to WNHHLP 103.5 FM, broadcasting from New Haven, Connecticut.
Hello and welcome to WNHH Radio's Dateline New Haven. I'm your host, Paul Bass, inviting you to look behind the headlines on the stories that make our community tick. Well, actually, today is Dateline West Haven, although we sometimes argue that New Haven is a broader term. That means a lot of communities, but we're visiting to the once, and he hopes future, mayor of West Haven. His name is Ed O'Brien, and he's on the comeback trail. Thanks for coming in, Ed.
Thank you, Paul. Thanks for having me.
It's great to see you.
Good to see you.
If you're listening to us, if you're watching on Facebook Live, feel free to send us any kind of comments or questions during the show. And thanks to Yale New Haven Hospital for providing support for today's program. So, Ed O'Brien, you were mayor of West Haven for 4 years, 2 terms. You were first elected in 2013. The city's 11th mayor. I guess the city's has not been around as long as I thought.
The city's been around since the 60s. When I went to the mayor.
Oh, I see.
There before that was the first selectman.
Oh, okay. And what was the difference? Like by calling it a mayor, what changed things?
I don't really believe as far as operational it changed anything.
Was it more the way elections are done?
Right. The more the way elections has to do with population.
Okay.
So.
And it became more of a city.
Correct.
It kind of coincided with growth.
Right.
And you're back now. You lost 2 years ago to Nancy Rossi. So why are you back? Why do you want the job again?
I think West Haven is a great town. It can be so much greater. When I had my business on Campbell Avenue, I thought that West Haven could be so much more than what it was. I think development in a commercial base was lacking. It's something that I worked on. It's just something I want to continue on. I think development is the road to prosperity, and I want to get back on that.
And that was something you spent a lot of time on. We'll talk about that, including projects
Absolutely.
Like the Haven. And why is that? Is because do you have a large tax-exempt base the way that New Haven does? Now, we're 55% of our property now. We can't tax because it's nonprofit. I know you have UNH. You got Bear.
Right. We have UNH. We have the Yale West property.
Yeah.
There's a large tax.
That's right. I called it Bear. That's I'm dating myself.
Right. Yeah. The old Miles Pharmaceutical, right?
Yeah.
But yeah, the city was not going out and attracting a commercial base for many, many years. So I think that we would see a lot of businesses going to Milford, Orange, New Haven.
And what's the reason for that?
I think they weren't attracting a commercial base to the city.
I mean, why would they go to the other towns? Is it denser development in those places where there were other kind of businesses they wanted to be around?
Well, I think if you take the Post Road, for example, a lot of it has to do with the planning and zoning, mistakes of many years. There's not a lot of depth to those properties. So you weren't getting the big box stores and things like that.
Did you want the big box stores? Are they worth it?
I think you do want a mix. I think you want the big box stores. You want the small mom and pop stores. You want the mixed use developments, which is what we're doing around UNH area in Allentown.
I did want to talk about Allentown. I've always been interested in Allentown. People know that's right over the line from New Haven when you're going up Forest Road or up Route 1. And it's in the old days, it kind of had, remember it had Mamoons there in the old days? It had one kind of flavor to it. I started seeing and it has a fire district, and it's also more African-American historically than the rest of West Haven, correct?
Right, it's more diverse.
More diverse. And then over the years, I started seeing the businesses being replaced with immigrant-run bases. Is that correct? I saw African businesses, Indian restaurant, things like that. I mean, I'm talking about the stores that already existed.
Right.
And then we had a new development there, right? You had a whole new, I guess, geared to University of New Haven students, right? Where you have a whole bunch of stores and several stories, right?
Correct.
So tell me about that. When did that happen and why?
That's called the Atwood. That started around 2014.
So you were in office already when that happened?
I was in office.
Had you been a selectman? What do they call them? Council member before that?
I was on the city council since 2005.
So you were aware of all that development over the years?
Correct. And I was the chairman of the council. So I was well involved in that stuff. But, I think that what we needed to do is keep those students in West Haven. Those students from UNH were leaving going to New Haven, going to other communities. So it was a way to kind of keep them in the area to put a college village.
And Ed, I'm going to ask you a little closer now. Are there Are there apartments in that complex? I noticed it goes up a couple stories.
There's 3 floors of residential.
And who lives there? Is that when
Those are students, and when they were first built, they were for graduate students, Yale and UNH, professors that are here for a few years, and students. So it's a mix in there.
And now UNH has dorms.
Yes, they do.
But do most of the kids commute or no? I know you have a lot of international students at UNH, so obviously they don't commute.
I believe right now the population is living on campus. So there's more than commuters.
So then who wants to live in those apartments rather than campus? Because, I mean, you walk, it's right to campus. I mean, it's just a couple blocks.
Right.
Well, you have to cross a lot of traffic, which isn't fun.
You have to cross, right.
But so who wants to live in those apartments? Are they filled up?
The apartments are 100% leased. And it's just, like I said, it's graduate students that don't want to live on campus but want another option.
Mm-hmm. And one thing I always noticed, there is retail around there. It's not just restaurants, right? I mean, you have clothing stores. You have Richland, right? Is that still
right? We have Richland. Eblen's moved in.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. So there was no retail down there. There was small little, little boutique stores, little boutique stores, right? But there was no commercial. The first bank that has been in Allentown in 25 years is in that Atwood building.
Now, when we cross, I know we're getting a little in the weeds here. When we cross Forest Road, there's a big empty space that used to be the Forest Theater.
Yes.
And for many of us, that's what brought us to that area, one of the old kind of fashion movie houses. Why has that been vacant so long, and what's planned for there?
Okay, that's going to be the third of a 3-part series of buildings, which is called University Commons. The first one is Atwood. The second one is across the street, adjacent to the Green. And the third one is going to be where that Forest Theater is. Adjacent to
the Allentown.
The Allentown.
That's small,
yeah.
Kind of, yeah.
Right.
And what's going to be in this third one?
And the third one's going to be mixed use, retail on the first floor, and apartments on the
And who's building?
Second, third,
Is the same developer for all of it?
Same developer, Acorn Properties.
Okay, so that's David Beckerman and Mark Sklar's, right?
Yes.
Okay.
Right.
And so they had been they also had a big property off Route 34 they were going to develop, right?
They wound up selling that. They sold that to Yale New Haven Health System, and Yale New Haven is merging their fulfillment center, which encompasses everything from Providence to Rhode Island.
I was going to ask you what it means to be fulfillment. What does a hospital do what does fulfillment mean for a hospital?
What they do is they deliver everything, and they manage everything from Band-Aids to CAT scan machines, MRI machines. They supply all their
And
hospitals.
You said Yale New Haven Systems. You didn't say Yale New Haven Hospital because they own a bunch of hospitals now. Right. So is this a central facility for ordering and supplies and kind of operations for the whole system?
Correct, for the entire Yale New Haven health system. And again, it goes from Providence, Rhode Island to Westchester.
Wow.
Yeah.
What do they have in Westchester?
I believe they have a hospital up in Westchester.
Oh, I didn't know that. Wow, really growing.
Yeah.
So now West Haven has gotten some of that Yale New Haven development. In New Haven, when Yale New Haven wants to develop, there is pushback from the union that would like to see more of their workforce unionized. Is West Haven an alternative for them because there isn't that union pressure? Is there not the same kind of political influence of the healthcare workers union in West Haven?
Well, Yale New Haven Health System is unionized, so those will be union employees.
Oh, really?
Right. And that came in during my administration, and we talked to them about having West Haven residents as their first.
And why did they want to go to West Haven? Just there was more land available? That's like a nice big open spot there, and it's convenient right by Route 34?
Right. It was just West Haven. I mean, I think that's the job, and that gets back to our earlier discussion, selling West Haven. We have the workforce. We have the property. You
don't get to collect taxes on that property.
Nope, 100% taxable.
So it is taxable.
It is taxable.
Why is that taxable if it's owned by a nonprofit?
Yale New Haven Health System is taxable.
Why is that?
It's not. I don't know.
Are they a holding company that's for profit?
They're holding it as a for-profit company.
Well, you guys lucked out.
Correct.
So everything Yale New Haven does in our city,
I don't know if I would say luck.
Well, tell me about that.
Well, I think it was selling the city, getting them to come to West Haven. And again, it's there's a lot of misinformation. A lot of people think it is non-taxable. It's 100% taxable.
Wow.
And we didn't have to use any incentives for that either.
Wow. Because I know that for years, Acorn was just sitting on that thing.
Right.
Plans that never happened.
Correct.
But now, and is Acorn's property taxable?
Yes.
Allentown? Did you have to give them any kind of phase-ins or anything like that?
We give them a 7-year phase-in.
Is that the state one that all cities do, that if you improve a property, when you make it worth more, you phase in the additional amount, so you start out paying what it was worth before, and then for 7 years you go to the 100%?
Right, correct.
Okay.
It starts out as 10% every year. for 7 years.
That only gets you to 70.
They get 70%, and then they 60% the second year,
Oh,
50%.
I see. Okay, and we're talking Ed O'Brien, former mayor of West Haven, and now running again to be trying to become mayor again. So you're going to run as a Democrat.
I'm going to run as a Democrat.
And Nancy Rossi, the incumbent, is a Democrat.
Correct.
She's expected to run again, but hasn't announced.
Correct.
Debbie Collins is the city clerk. Is it?
The current city clerk.
And every time she's mentioned the register, they say popular city clerk.
She is a popular city clerk.
Oh, what's that about?
Debbie's been in that office since, I believe, the early 90s.
Mm-hmm.
So she's very popular.
So what does that mean? What does that mean for you? How's that feel? How do you distinguish yourself from the two people in there?
Well, I think I distinguish myself, from Nancy Rossi in a lot of ways. It's, accomplishments will speak to that. As far as Debbie she's a dear friend of mine. I've known Debbie for years. But she does not come from the city council. She does not have the experience, I believe, to just jump into that level of a position.
And all three Democrats now in New Haven, we talked about this if we went on air. You have a lot of independents in West Haven and
Right.
a lot of Democrats, but you used to have Republicans and then they disappeared, right?
Right.
Where'd they go?
I don't know.
I mean, did they become independents?
I think they became independents and Democrats.
What do you think made them independents?
Over the years, their numbers have dwindled. I don't know.
I mean, is it that the National Party moved a certain way, or that you got it in the population changed in a way that made it more liberal? What was
Right.
that?
I would think the population in West Haven has changed an awful lot since those days.
Is that racial makeup, or
that's racial makeup? Sure.
what is the racial breakdown of the city?
It's about 40% minority. Correct.
And is that mostly African American?
It's a mix between African American and Latinos.
Okay.
And those are the people that I'm reaching out to, and I feel have not really had a part in government. So.
Have they ever had any citywide officials elected who aren't white?
Sure. We had a tax collector who was a Latino, African American, a few African Americans on the city council. We had Brent Watt, John Lewis, that I could think of off the top of my head.
All right.
So yeah, they were represented.
So now we talked a bit on the air that New Haven, we're almost seeing primaries. Eric Marciano says, hello, Ed and Paul. Thank you for listening, Eric. Hello to you as well. We talked about New Haven now. It's almost becoming like a runoff election. So in New Haven, we have the same deal with many more Democrats, almost no Republicans, but quite a few, 15, 20,000, I believe it is, independents, just like in West Haven. And what's your total population?
56,000.
Okay, but you must have a much higher percentage registered than in New Haven.
Right.
Although I think we have 45,000, if I'm not mistaken, Democrats. So it's a given that when someone runs for mayor here, well, not the incumbent, I don't think Tony Hart will, but I know Justin Elicker did this in 2013, so did some others. I think he'll do this again, so did the challenger since then. You register to run as a Democrat in the primary, but before the primary, you have to make a decision about if you want to be on the ballot as an independent in November if you don't win the primary, because you have this huge group of voters now.
Right.
Who may or may not have different desires and kind of constitute different kind of voting blocks. So it gives you a second bite of the apple. And I know that in 2013 in New Haven, we had a 4-way primary, and then the two top people ended up running, the same people in the general.
Yeah.
But you said you're not registering to run as an unaffiliated candidate in the general if you lose in the primary. Tell me about why that is.
I think I'm going to run as a Democrat, stay true to the Democratic Party. I will not run as an independent if I'm not successful in the primary.
Is that because you think you wouldn't have a different kind of appeal for those independents as opposed to your opponents?
No, I think I would have that kind of appeal. I just think I'm going to stay as a Democrat, run as a Democrat, and just stay true to the party.
All right. And so some of the issues, one of the big issues in West Haven for years has been finances.
Mm-hmm.
The city finances have been a mess. You're one of the few in the state under the control of MARB.
Correct.
Now, that's the state body that gives bailouts to communities that are in trouble, like Hartford, in return for having some control over the decisions they make. And let's see, account review board, municipal
accountability review board.
So now, you had about an $18 million deficit when they took over a few years ago.
Correct, 16.
What was that decision like for you to give up some control of your city to a state oversight body?
Okay, well, we have to go back to 2015. I put together a deficit restructuring plan, and we would have got out of our deficit situation, and we would have no need for the MARB. That got shot down city council, led by Nancy Rossi.
Was that because of what you want? Did you want to restructure pensions?
It was restructuring our debt. It was refunding our deficit.
And how would you have done that?
We would have refinanced them all and put them all into, one bond
Mm-hmm.
and stretched it out. I believe it was like about 8 months.
Okay.
So, but the debt
Now, one
service
criticism of that sometimes gets called scoop and toss, that
Mhm.
you're getting short-term money by restructuring debt. And that helps you pay operating costs, which is always dangerous, using debt for operating costs as opposed to capital projects.
Correct.
And then in the end, you pay a lot more years later for that debt. How did you, was that the criticism you got for that, is when they shut it down?
That is the criticism I got, but that really wasn't the case. We were paying less because a lot of those older bonds were at higher interest rates. So the
Mhm.
net was less, and our debt service would have been substantially less.
So what was the reason given?
Well, to do it, it would have been cash flow. It would have been a lot less on the debt service per year. Really, I can't. The reason was we were stretching the debt out, but we were stretching it out 8 months. So I think it was more, honestly, if you ask me, I think it was more a political decision. She ran for mayor right after that. So we got stuck in this situation where we had this debt. The state came in, gave us $8 million over 2 years to take care of that deficit. And it's not so much oversight as they run the day-to-day operations, but there's some strings attached
Well,
to
didn't
that.
they have to say yes when you had a new union contract?
They have to review it and comment on it.
And
Yes.
didn't they say no to the first proposed contract?
Yes, they did.
And what was the reason for that?
I believe there was a 2% increase.
And they said you can't
didn't
afford
want
that.
the increase. You can't
So
afford
how
it.
did you deal with that?
That was after my term. So I think they just went back to the drawing board and lowered the
Do you think that's a
increases.
good idea? Does Marv make it easier for elected officials to make tough decisions that might not cost them their job?
I do think that MARB, yes, it gives the mayor currently right now can hide behind MARB at any bad decision.
And so what's the status now? Are finances okay because of the Marv bailout?
Well, coupled with a lot of other things. I did the deficit refinancing, so we did take care of the deficit. By the time I left, the deficit was refunded. Again, it's stretching it out a little bit, but it was refunded at less favorable terms than it would have been in 2015. And then the money from the MARB, it did help.
Mm-hmm.
So they just audited my final fiscal year 18 budget, and that came out with a surplus.
So what? And tell me about policing too in your town. Now, one of the big controversies has been the Sergeant David Tamara. Was that his name?
Yes,
And he had been fired because he was inflating overtime and he'd been arrested.
he had been
But
arrested.
charges were dropped.
Correct.
And he's back on the force.
He retired.
Oh, he retired.
He retired.
So
He retired.
and B. Faulkner said she's listening. Thank you for listening, B.
Oh, B, I said hello.
So what's your thought on that? How that was handled?
You know what? That happened after my time as mayor. I think it was appropriate, though. There was an investigation. They did drop the charges.
And how do you feel about dropping charges? Some people think there's too much favoritism given to police by prosecutors because they work hand in hand with them.
Right. Well, that was the state police did the investigation, the state's attorney. So I'm not going to sit here and second guess.
Okay.
Second
Well, what you're
guess
going
the
to do is you
state's
can tell
attorney.
people that you're running for mayor. Ed O'Brien running for mayor in West Haven. He had been the mayor. Now, when you were mayor, I think maybe the highest, tell me if I'm wrong, the highest profile moment of your mayoralty was announcing that there's going to be this huge new waterfront retail complex called The Haven.
Correct.
And here in New Haven,
Mhm.
we were applauding that. It was sort of a new era in regional cooperation. Back a generation ago, we were hiring lawyers to fight suburban commercial real estate deals because we felt like we wanted those box stores, those chain stores. Now we're saying that if we work together, different kinds of commerce are appropriate for different kinds of places. We're not looking as much for those chain stores in New Haven, but we want the jobs you would get out there. So to be part of it, so you've been working together. You were working together with Mayor Harp on that.
Right.
So the Haven was a plan. It was controversial first because of eminent domain, but that went through.
Mm-hmm.
But now it still hasn't been built. It was supposed to be done originally by June 2020, and it's nowhere near. There's still a bunch of properties the city has to give up, and they still haven't met to do that, right? Were they meet last night, the city council, to deal with the 3 last properties? Or
No, all properties are acquired. 57 properties are all acquired.
But aren't there 3 city properties the city council has to make a decision about closing them down? So
those are the roads.
Mhm.
Closing the roads down, yes.
But they don't want to make that yet because they feel like the developer hasn't proved that he's really ready to start building, right?
Correct. They don't want us to close the roads and abandon those roads until they're ready to build.
And so what happened last night? I know that was coming. Was the developer come before the council?
The developer did not come. They wound up abandoning their request for abandoning the road. So they tabled it last night.
So, Ed, it sounds like it's a little bit in limbo.
Yeah, it's really not in limbo. I think what 5 years ago when it was announced, they didn't even have the plans drawn up. So that took a year. Then they had to purchase 57 properties individually.
Yeah.
We could have went eminent domain. The city did not want eminent domain. I really was not.
Oh, you didn't do any eminent domain?
No eminent domain.
Oh, because that was the big controversy for a while.
Right. But the city, did not want eminent domain. I didn't think that was a good way to go. So they had to individually purchase these properties. So that took, so many years.
Mm-hmm.
Now they're all acquired. They're waiting for one last permit from the state, what I believe, the traffic DOT.
So you think it is on track?
I believe it is on track, yes.
And it's going to
I think the
it's going to be
developers.
265,000 square feet of stores on Long Island Sound.
Correct. Yeah, restaurants. There's going to be 6 restaurants.
And so one critique that came online was they call it the design, an inward-looking mall with big parking lots by the water. Like, why would you look away from the water, and why would you have parking right by the water? Any thoughts on that?
Yes. The building, first of all, was going to be where the parking is now, right on the water. The ground wasn't suitable for that.
Oh, so you don't want the thing sinking.
So you
Well,
don't
actually,
think
everyone's talking about coastal resilience.
right, exactly.
So building anything by the water is kind of iffy with rising sea levels, right?
Correct. But the design is they're going to elevate the land going towards First Avenue. So the stores will, when you're in a store, you will look out over the water, over the parking. And there's tree lines. And
So at first you're going to be up in the air looking at the water, and maybe in 20 years you're going to be right at sea level.
it's sea level. But by then the trees will be grown,
Right.
and you won't see the cars.
Oh, okay, that's interesting.
But it's a
Sounds like that's actually by design.
It is by design, and it's
Yeah.
a $200 million privately funded property. So people have to realize they're not spending their $200 million and not making a beautiful place.
Mhm.
So,
And Dave Standard says, "Go Ed."
how are you,
Any
Dave?
any other thoughts about coastal resiliency, climate change, and beachfront? I mean, beach is a defining aspect in the boardwalk in West Haven. Are people still going to be able to walk along the beach in 10 years?
I believe they will. When I was in, we did a grant to raise Beach Street to kind of help that, the flooding over there. There's lots of projects for coastal resiliency in West Haven. So
That's a great walk.
it is a great walk, and now you can walk almost all the way through New Haven.
Oh, really?
When where they did the highway, you can walk the Long Wharf right over the bridge, right
Oh, very
First
nice.
Avenue. And
So how do you
walkway.
cross over the water?
Kimberly Avenue Bridge?
Oh, so you walk on Kimberly Avenue Bridge
Right.
to get over.
It connects to the walkway they put leading to Long Wharf.
Oh, okay. Oh,
Yeah,
very
so-
nice. Have you done that?
I have not done it all the way through New Haven. I've done West Haven.
How often do you walk there?
I walk there probably 2-3 times a week. I was
So,
down
Ed,
the beach this weekend.
If you get reelected, you're going to have a new governor from the one you had before, Ned Lamont, and he's talked about regionalism,
Mhm.
towns sharing services to spend less money, and that there'll be carrots and sticks. You get rewards for that from the state. I know that's a difficult subject in West Haven because the fire districts would be the classic, right? Everybody really goes to the mat to the death to protect their own fire districts in West Haven. And some people are talking about they think towns should merge fire districts, where in West Haven you have your own self-funded,
Right.
democratically elected fire districts. Is that a possibility?
I think it's a possibility, and I think the fire departments and the leadership in those fire departments are willing to talk about that also.
I mean, it's kind of weird to have 3 fire departments in West Haven.
It is, but it was set up at the turn of the century when they had 3 separate fire departments. So it's really 3 separate entities. You can't just say we're going to merge them and put them together.
Why
There's
not?
a process because it's like saying we're just going to merge.
Oh, right. Ed can't say it.
Ed can't say it, right, but they can get together and say it. And
Would you like that, or is that not necessary? Is there some advantage to having it local, or do you not need 3 chiefs?
No, I think there's advantages to merging and combining.
Mhm.
I certainly would lead the discussion and get around the table and try and work out those issues. I think that's something that the mayor should do. And we have had discussions while I was mayor about we should really kind of start moving towards having these discussions. But I don't think it should be dictated. I think everybody should be at the table and we should solve that
Mhm.
issue collectively.
All right. Rob Whalen says, what happened to the grant money for Beach Street? West Haven received over $2 million in grant money for Beach Street. And thank you for the question. I apologize for not being familiar with what this question's about. But
He's talking about the grant money to raise Beach Street.
what you were just talking about a minute ago, right?
Yeah.
Coastal resilience by the Haven.
Right. We got a $2 million grant. We started the design, and at least while I was in office, the design was coming more expensive than the $2 million.
So what's going to happen?
I believe they have to go back for more grant money.
Is that federal grant money?
That was state grant money, but I'm sure you can go to the federal government also for that.
What if you don't get it? Is the whole thing dead?
It's really an issue that you have to deal with. So
Yeah.
somehow you have to.
And New Haven is getting the money, for instance, for our coastal resilience.
Right.
I mean, there's money for that even in today's federal government
Right.
time. So you think it's going to be on track? It just needs more money. And why did it come in over? Why was the original request too low?
Original request was done years ago, so it just,
By the
there's
time
more
you get
work
the
involved
money.
by the time we got the money, right?
All right.
So it
Thanks for
has to
that
be. I mean, but
question.
it's something that really should be done.
And how's the train station doing in West Haven? I know there was those issues where it was more people using it than you thought, which is a good problem.
Correct.
But that caused some other issues about what had to be redesigned there, correct?
Right. Well, parking's a huge issue at that train
Right.
station, but that's governed by the state and Metro North, so the DOT.
So now you have a new state transportation commissioner who was the president of Metro North.
Metro
What's that going to mean for that? Are you looking to get more parking there?
I actually met with him when he was the president of Metro North, and he understands the parking issue there.
So do you have hope that he'd get you money for?
I would have hoped that he would.
Is that what you're looking for, like a multi-level parking garage there?
I think we either need that, or I know Metro North sends a lot of people parking there too. We just need to do a better job enforcing the parking.
What does that mean?
If you park there now, there's not a lot of ticketing going on. There's a lot of people
Oh,
leaving
right.
the
And they're
cars
saying
there.
there's
They're
enough
using
ticketing.
it almost as a commuter lot.
But is that a salute? What if it were more for commuters, so you could leave it all day? Isn't that the goal?
It's a commuter lot where people meet, get in other people's cars, and carpool.
Okay. Which also isn't a bad thing, is it?
It's not a bad thing, but the train station needs that parking.
So what about
commuters.
a multi-level parking facility?
I think that's the answer. I also think we have the Armstrong building. We can work that in with some private developer. Certainly, grant money from the state to build that would be.
You mean
ideal.
on the Armstrong property, the private developer would make money running a garage?
Correct.
Okay.
The developer would
But
include
the
that in their
ticketing, is that
project.
up to you though? Isn't the ticketing enforcement up to West Haven?
No, that's state. They have a private firm that does that.
Why do they have a private firm?
It's a DOT state. Right,
I'll never understand the mysteries
Mhm.
of DOT. Dave Stannard says, "Why can't the developer of the Haven continue the demolition while wait? Oh, why can't the developer continue the demolition while waiting for the DOT?"
They can. What the issue is they want to do it all in one shot for economic reasons. But people don't realize that once you knock those buildings down, you lost
And
the
which
taxes.
buildings are we talking about?
Where the Haven property is. It's
Uh-huh.
on First Avenue.
And what's in those buildings now?
They're houses that are vacant right now.
But you're
So
still getting tax money.
We're still
on it.
getting tax money on them. So if they came in and knocked down those 57 properties, it would be a huge hit to the grand list.
Mm.
So
It's going to happen at some point, right?
It will happen at some point.
So
yes.
is one argument, if that gets the project moving faster, we'll get closer to that day of the 7-year phase in where we get those taxes?
Right, we'll get a close where if they knock the houses on, where the developers owns those properties, and they don't want to raise the properties until they're ready to build.
Rich Fowler asks, and thanks everybody for listening, sending questions. Why did the developer knock down 4 houses before the election down at the Havens during your tenure, then stop all work right after the election was over?
They did come in. I was driving to work one day and I saw the bulldozers there and the equipment there. They knocked down 4 houses. The election came and they actually stopped. So I don't know. I think in the question, it's assuming
that you orchestrated something to try to get yourself elected, but that then they stop because they think the project didn't have as much possibility, or that they prematurely did that as sort of a election boost, or
yeah. Honestly, the answer to that one is you would have to ask the developer. I have no idea.
So Ed O'Brien, you're running for a 3rd term
Yes,
after being out. Why do you think you lost? It's hard when a politician loses. Is that the first election you ever lost?
Yes.
Because, Bill Clinton lost his big one when he was incumbent as governor. John DeStefano in New Haven lost after a meteoric career when he was young, running for mayor, and it hurts. And then you got to come back stronger. How are you coming back after that loss? How did it hurt? What did you learn from it?
Well, I think I learned an awful lot from that election. First of all, I think complacency played a big part in that election. But
how so?
I think we were doing an awful lot of development. People in West Haven did see that the finances were getting better. West Haven's image was getting better. People were moving to West Haven. Businesses were moving to West Haven. And I think it just, voter turnout was low through complacency.
Meaning you didn't work hard enough to get out.
I certainly didn't work hard enough.
And Dave Stannard says, thank you for that reasonable answer. Thank you, David, for the comment.
Thank you, Dave. But going forward, the benefit of losing that election, if there is a benefit, is that I learned an awful lot. And I learned that we need to be more inclusive. I need to go out, and I have been for the last year, talking to our minority population, people that weren't served by West Haven government.
Did the minority vote go for Nancy Rossi last time?
No, I think it was
a
mix, but they're not represented in government.
Was Black Coalition involved at all? Carol Brown's group?
Last election?
Yeah, do they back candidates?
Yeah, I don't believe they were last election.
How about this election?
This election, believe they're with me.
Oh, really?
Yes.
Okay. Now, does
So,
that
Carol Brown?
does that translate to turnout?
I
'Cause
believe
they,
that
they
turns-
sure turn out people to events. Carol Brown's a dynamo. Yeah.
Right. She has that great event we just went to a few
Yeah.
months ago. Yeah, I think that does translate into getting the vote out.
Okay.
You know, and many other. West Haven is the largest Turkish American population in the state.
That's right. You have those two halal restaurants right across the street, almost from each other.
Right. Yeah, so you know, my
And
team
you got
will
the
be
masjid.
inclusive.
You got the masjid and by UNH.
Correct. Yep.
In there.
Yeah,
So what you learned is that you needed to be more inclusive and less complacent about the vote.
right, and people did not feel they were included. So,
How about any other way you govern? Did you learn anything about governing?
governing, I think that honestly, I think we did a good job governing. I mean, the city was running smoothly at that point. We were doing our maintenance, and the city was clean. And again, people were coming to West Haven. We could always do better, and I will do better.
Okay. Now, you grew up in West Haven.
I grew up in West Haven.
You are the founder and owner of Gold Works on Campbell Avenue, a jewelry repair and retail shop in the heart of downtown for more than 25 years.
Correct.
Was that a family biz, or had you started?
That's a company my wife and I started back in our early 20s. We it's manufacturing, do a lot of jewelry manufacturing. We've done work for, I think, every national
Is it still
company
around?
out there. My brother's running it right now.
But you didn't go back to it.
No, I didn't go back to
How
that.
come?
I decided I got this job offer, and I was going to try
And
something
this was
different.
management for emergency communications.
Right.
Antoinette Russo, we need to return to moving forward with your leadership, seniors of West Haven. Thank you, Antoinette, for
Full
for your
disclosure,
comment.
Antoinette Russo is my mom.
Oh, wow.
Thanks, Mom.
Well, Antoinette, well, it's good. When your mom's on your side, it's good for your campaign. But journalistically, in Chicago School of Reporting, they teach you if your mom says you love you, go get a second source to confirm it. Sounds like you don't need that second
I
source.
don't need that. No, my good luck charm there, my mom.
And so tell me about the town. What is it? Why do you stay in West Haven? Why do you love it? And why do you want to lead it again?
Again, I think West Haven is a great community. We have all the bones to be a great town. We have a beautiful shoreline. We have a great town center that needs help. It just has so much to offer. West Haven, so I think it's a great community.
And why do you enjoy being the mayor of the city?
I enjoyed seeing my vision, something that I've talked about, since my early years, of bringing development, bringing economic development. I think that development is the way to prosperity for the city of West Haven, and it gets us out of our financial issues. So I was excited about doing that, thought we were doing a great job, and I'd like to get back to doing that.
All right. Hey, thanks everyone for listening, by the way, and for your questions. That's what really makes these shows tick. And what a pleasure it was to chat with Ed O'Brien for a half hour.
Thank you.
Thanks
Thank you for having me.
And how would people get involved in your campaign? How do they contact you?
Reelected2019.com. All the information's up there. We're looking for an army this
Reelected2019.com. So you had to get that one early, right? Aren't there a lot of reelect Eds in the country?
We got it early.
Okay. And I want to thank Yale New Haven Hospital for providing support for today's program. We're going to take it out with the Afro-Semitic Experience performing I Wish I Knew How It Would Feel to Be Free from the group CD, A Plea for Peace. This is Paul Bass inviting you to fly free with us all day and all night long at WNHH, New Haven's home for community radio.